First, first off, I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, and
Yeah.
good evening to a lot of my friends I see around the world. I hope everything's well. Anyway, this will probably be my last presentation on the square. Some of you folks have seen it before, and I've I have it continued to evolve and added pictures as I found additional information. But quite frankly, it's kind of drying up. There's very little coming out that I haven't seen already and haven't incorporated into this presentation. So, to Lyle also, for your information, Lyle has agreed that this presentation will be put on the US website. So you can go back to it at any time, and hopefully if there's any questions, you can try to figure it out. There's some nuances with the pattern books, and I still have questions that are unanswered, and because there's quite a lack of information other than from the experts here about the square shape. There's very little in writing other than the pattern books themselves, which I've tried to follow ever since I decided to put this database into effect. Well, let's get started. Lyle, if you go to the first square or the first slide, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay, nope, you're in the second one, I think. Back
right.
up. Okay, a
There
little
we
bit
go.
of background why I've done this. Um, I think about 1996, Donna and I went to the UK with Dick and LaDonna Douglas. They took us around to the antique fairs at the time. Well, on a miserable, cold, rainy day at Swinderby, which was a former RAF airfield, I saw an older gentleman sitting out in the rain with a table with several pieces of Wileman Square for sale. I'd never seen Square before. Okay. Well, anyway, back on Swinderby, we were there, 5 or 6 years ago, and it was just in a giant boot sale. It was really a total loss of what it used to be on Shelley and Wileman. Anyway, on a subsequent trip to the UK, I declared myself a student researcher and consequently was allowed to photograph the first four existing pattern books. This gave me a great deal of information on the square. That's where most of my knowledge came from. Then later I believe it was 2019, I was allowed to make my first Wildman Square presentation to the English Club's annual general general meeting. And since that time, I've been able to capture more pictures and more information, mainly pictures. And the database itself is probably almost twice the size of what it originally was. Next slide, please. This is kind of the standard caveat. Information here is most accurate to the best of my knowledge. I ask that the study may not be copied, reproduced, or distributed in any form whatsoever outside of Shelley Club members without my written permission. Then lastly, most importantly, the pattern books and pictures in the pattern books in this slide are copyright protected by WWRD, the group that owns the pattern books, and the City Archive of Stoke-on-Trent. Pictures and data from the pattern books contained in this presentation may not be copied, reproduced, or distributed in any form whatsoever without their written permission. Okay, so much for the legal stuff. Next slide, please. Um, I would not have been able to put this database together without a lot of help from around the world of collectors and really people who are very knowledgeable at all. Jill Burridge, Chris Davenport, Jerry Pierce, Peter Perazzo, Gladys Ryall, Bruce Sandy, Bob Nicole Smith, and members from all three or four Shelley clubs who have generously provided photographs and additional information from their personal collections. I've also want to thank the permission to photograph the pattern books by the City Archive Stoke-on-Trent and authorization to include pattern book pictures and data in this study with the permission of WWRD Stoke-on-Trent. And obviously the written authority at the time, the Wildman A Collector's Guide by Richard Knight and Susan Hill, and Since then, I've been able to capture additional pictures from WorthPoint and eBay. For those of you that don't know WorthPoint, they capture sales that have been made on various platforms. I have not bought the price it sold for, but I'm allowed to go in there, and there's several thousand, I believe there's several thousand Wileman pictures in there of what has sold for, gosh, I don't know how many years, but it's been a source of additional pictures to this study. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the square shape itself. Square shape was the first shape registered by Wileman and Company. It was initially registered under the old diamond registration mark in December 8th, 1883. Then less than, I guess, 6 months later, the government went to the new numbered registration system, and Wileman Square was registered as number 6559 on May 8th, 1884. It happens to be the only Shelley Wileman shape that was registered twice. First under the old diamond mark and then under the newer registration mark. Now, interestingly enough, manufacture of the square shape was supposedly discontinued, according to Knight and Hill in their collector's guide, about 1888. In this study, I'll show you several examples of a later date that have been identified and are included in this study. In other words, I can show you stuff made considerably after 1888, but we'll see what that is later. Next slide, please. Okay, in the pattern books themselves, the first existing pattern book, and you know what I mean, that's the first one we have. Prior pattern books apparently are not to be found. The first existing pattern book starts with pattern 3348 and ends with 4966. Within that book, the first pattern number for the square shape is 3476, and the last one in that book is 3776. Most, if not a great majority, of the factory pattern numbers used on the square shape are found in the first pattern book. There is one known exception, number 7843, which is found in the fifth pattern book and appears to be a reissue of the earlier pattern 3567. Now, all of the special patterns, by special patterns, I mean commemorative patterns, souvenir plates, stuff of that nature that are on square plates, were not assigned factory pattern numbers, and as far as I know, have never been identified in any existing pattern books. In the first pattern book, the square shape was usually indicated in writing as a notation of either QA, QA square, square, Queen Anne square, or as a drawing representing a square plate profile. When I say Queen Anne square, that is not the later Queen Anne. This is the square was originally called Queen Anne Square. Okay, in several instances, factory pattern numbers in the first pattern book refer back to earlier pattern numbers, but are no longer accessible due to the missing pattern books. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the character we're looking at. This is what a square shape looks like. On the left, there's a square cup. On the right, there's a handled large plate, a saucer, I guess a dinner plate or a bread plate, and then looking down on the cup. That's what the square shape looks like. Most distinctly is the handle. It was unique to all square pieces, well, except for the plates. The plates have that very distinct profile, which is, I'll show you the difference later, difference between that profile and say the antique profile. Next slide, please. Okay, factory pattern numbers and registration pattern numbers. A lot of differences here. The factory pattern numbers, I use PN, were assigned by Wileman and Company to uniquely identify pattern and color variation. So each color variation carried a different pattern number and were used as a specific identifier in the pattern books. This was used by the factory to make replacements if were later needed, because they could go back to a pattern number and know exactly the colors, whatever, and the pattern itself and the colors. However, in many cases, factory pattern numbers were not included as part of the backmark on a lot of square pieces. That makes it a little more difficult. Okay, registered pattern numbers. Some of the patterns used on square were assigned a registration number by the government, usually under the Wileman and Company symbol. However, not all Wileman square patterns were registered, so a number of them weren't registered patterns. Now, this is not to be confused by the registered shape number, which is RD number 6559, which is always shown in some manner as part of the backmark on any square piece. Now, specials, that's a term I've used, have not been identified in the pattern book. They are included due mainly by their identifiable square shape and the existence of a square shape registration number. None have shown factory pattern numbers, and in some cases, souvenirware may also include the name and address of the retailer who ordered the specific item. So generally on specials, the only identification will be the RD 6559. Next slide, please. Okay, backmarks. No examples of the earlier 1883 diamond registration mark are known to exist. I've never seen one. I'd love to see one, but I never have seen one. Remember, it was less than 6 months before the pattern itself was introduced and before the shape itself was introduced. Under the newer 1884 registration system, square backmarks are required to be either a stamped or an impressed mark of the shape's RD 6559 registration number. Now, however, backmarks found on Wileman Square shapes are often inconsistent. In addition to the mandatory shapes 6559 mark, square backmarks may include one or more of the following: the early Wileman and Company symbol, a registered pattern number if applicable, or a factory assigned pattern number. Now, I'll show you examples of most of these. Next slide, please. Okay, here are 6 examples, and not every possible combination. The upper left is a stamped 6559 registration number for the shape. There are no other marks there. For the right of that, you see the full enchilada. You see the early factory emblem. You see under that in red, you see the pattern registered pattern number. Then you see the shape registered number, RD 6559. And at the bottom, you'll see the factory assigned pattern number. This is the identifier in the pattern books. Okay, further to the right, you'll see a cup that has early Wileman symbol. There's also underneath it, there's an RD for the shape, the pattern registration, and a stamped RD 6559. There's no factory assigned pattern number on that piece. Going back to the far left bottom, the only thing there is an impressed, oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. The only thing there is an impressed 6559 and a factory assigned pattern number. So going to the right on the bottom, you'll see a cup that only has the impressed 6559 shown. Nothing else is there, and often this impressed number is difficult to read, but it's there. And on the far right at bottom, you'll see the factory RD number, or I'm sorry, the factory assigned pattern number, and a stamped RD 6559. Now, there are also some additional combinations of this, but this is how the pattern back on the back stamps can be somewhat confusing. But there will always be some indication, either an incised impressed pattern number into the clay or a stamped RD 6559. That applies to the specials as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, some of the terms I used in this study, I'm trying to explain my database. At the top of each pattern, you'll see what I'm talking about later. If an asterisk is shown, it indicates the pattern name appears in the pattern book. Other pattern numbers, possibly chosen by Knight and Hill in their Wileman Collector's Guide, have just evolved over time. There's nothing formal about it. So a name can be in the pattern book, and in some patterns, it's not in the pattern book. I use the term verified pattern book indicates that the factory number that appears in the pattern book is assigned to the square shape with a specific pattern color, does not physically appear in part of the backmark of the piece that I photographed. Now, I try to show the piece that's photographed as well as the backmark. Sometimes the RD number or the pattern, the factory assigned pattern number is not there. But I've assumed from the color and everything else and the pattern itself to assign a number. And lastly, if it says term verified verified backmark indicates that the pattern number assigned by the factory is also the pattern number that appears on the backmark of the piece that I have photographed in the database. I hope I haven't totally confused you here, but it gets complicated. Next slide, please. Okay, we're getting close. Descriptions and terms used in the study, both patterns as well as number color variations identified in the pattern books that are highlighted in yellow represent patterns and or colors that are not included due to my inability to get pictures of them. And pattern book descriptions, where a physical example of a pattern has not been found, physical example, a picture of the pattern book may be included. In most cases, this could include a drawing of the pattern, a written description, and or an illustration of the pattern on a square plate profile. So a handwritten illustration. You'll see some of these as we go through the pictures. Next slide, please. Okay, here are relative sizes. As you see, all sizes of cups have the same handle. On the left, cabaret, tea, breakfast mustache. I've tried to make this helpful. So next slide, it shows the sizes and heights. Now there's variations in the sizes to the firing variations. Here are square pot sizes. Next slide, please. And here are square bowls, slop, sugar, small bowl. I've tried to assign the correct names. And again, height and width, but variations will exist. Next slide, please. Okay, square milk pitchers, creamers, whatever you want to call them. Regular cabaret are usually smaller. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a summary of what the pictures that follow are. There appear to be 38 unique patterns identified in the first pattern book that were applied to the square shape. Of these, 26 are illustrated by photographs in this study, with the remaining 12 still unidentified. In other words, I don't have pictures of them, but which are represented by drawings and or comments taken from the first pattern book. However, I have found one pattern number, or the pattern number 3711 has been discovered that is not identified in the pattern book as being used on the square shape. I think it was identified as a Victoria. You'll see a picture of that, but it is a square, no questions about it. Okay, when including color variations to known patterns, there are 99 different known factory assigned pattern numbers that were applied to the square shape. 56 of these pattern numbers are represented by photographs. The remaining 43 are not included due to their unavailability to be found and photographed. Okay, this study now also includes 13 known special patterns that are not found in the pattern books, nor are they assigned factory pattern numbers. However, one of these specials was given a registered pattern number, RD 64761, celebrating Queen Victoria's 50th Jubilee in 1887, but was not assigned a factory pattern number. It had a registration number, but no pattern number. Have I totally confused everybody yet? Okay, here's where it starts. Square patterns with associated color variations included in this study. Next slide, please. This is the first pattern, Japan. That was named in the pattern book. This is, as far as I know, the first pattern known to have been used on the square shape. Next picture, please. This is a cabaret set. I had an opportunity to buy it, but I didn't have the money at the time. Next slide, please. Interestingly, I want to show you the tray. The tray are, I believe, earthenware. They're not china. And that was the only back mark on the tray you see to the right. But it's the 3476 pattern number, or factory pattern number. Okay, next slide. Okay, now there's a large slot bowl, sugar bowl, or a milk jug, just to see. Next. And there's a pot, interesting, with a base for the pot. Now the base is round, it's not square, but it carries the correct factory pattern number. So apparently the bases to the square pots were round. I didn't know that. But since it has the same pattern number, I assume it is correct. Next slide, please. Okay, pattern Ivy. That was named by the pattern books. There are, as you can see, 5 color variations of ivy, 2 of which I've never seen. Let's start with the first slide, please. Brown. Okay, that's brown filled with brown and green. The factory pattern number is shown. You can see the incised RD 6559, and you can see the Wileman symbol back mark. Next slide, please. There is ivy in salmon. Again, all it carries, it doesn't carry a factory pattern number, but it has the incised 6559. Next slide, please. And there is ivory. In other words, the background is different here. And this was a picture I captured, I never saw the back mark. I believe this is correct, but I cannot verify it. Next slide, please. Okay, now we go to a pattern named Roses and Butterflies, named by the factory. It refers back to an earlier pattern number 3448, which is among the missing. I think it's missing, but no description. And there are in the pattern book, there are 5 of these puppies identified: 3498, 3491, 3492, 3493, and 3619. And next slide, please. Okay, very pretty. And there we have butterflies, and often people identify butterflies with hiding a mistake. I don't think on this pattern, I think it was intentional to have a butterfly. Clearly identified as 3489. Next slide, please. There is the pot and a plate for very pretty pattern, I think. Next slide, please. Blackberry. Okay, this refers back to pattern number 3391, which I don't believe we have because it's missing. And there are, as you see, 2 of them I do not have pictures of, but I have pictures of 3496. Next slide, please. 3496. And there's a note not to be confused with a later registered Blackberry pattern, which will occur later, but they've named 2 things Blackberry, but this is basically a unique pattern that is different from the later Blackberry. Okay, next slide, please. Clematis. Okay, referred back to as 3500. In other words, the pattern itself was used on some other piece earlier, but so the pattern's not unique, but it was used on another shape. Okay, clematis, we have all, I guess, all five of them here. And it was not a registered pattern. Next slide, please. Okay, very pretty piece. You saw that before when I was showing sizes. Clearly identified as 3504. White background, front flower purple with black back flowers rose. Next slide, please. There is something I saw on, I guess, eBay. I said, wow. I didn't attempt to buy it. I didn't need it. I have so much of this stuff. But anyway, I just thought it was worth including. It's a very pretty pattern. Somebody has it, and they're very lucky to have it. Next slide, please. Now there's 3505. If I'm not mistaken, this pattern was found by this cup was found by Peter when he was out in Arizona or someplace. He bought it for me because he knew I wanted it. It was in a dusty antique shop, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, 3505. Next slide, please. Here we have it, salmon with a salmon background, purple with back flowers yellow. It's clearly identified. You can see the pattern number, 3506. It's in gold on the bottom there. Next slide, please. And clematis ivory background, 3507. You can see it clearly, factory pattern number shown. And there's the incised RD 355, excuse me, I'm confused. Okay, you see it. Next slide, please. And clematis, this is pattern 7504, which is way outside the range of the first pattern book. I'm assuming it was a replacement plate, and I've never seen another one. I just happened to catch this one, and it's clearly identified. You can see it in the right-hand picture, 3504. And this gets pretty confusing on the pattern books. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now here's an example of a pattern I've never seen, 3509. There's a picture of how it's represented in the pattern book. On the upper left, you see 3509. Now, the reason apparently on the first pattern book, the original inscriptions had to be overwritten at some later date. And that's why you see it's kind of confused. You have to look carefully. But they did it, the factory did it because apparently the original inscriptions were fading. But anyway, 3509, Queen Anne. And I also said, I can look at the picture and look at the red picture. You'll see part of a profile of a plate. And that is to me, a square profile plate. And it's also identified as Queen Anne. And anyway, I've never seen that pattern. I've never seen a picture of it. It is not named, but we're going to see a number of these. Next slide, please. Printed seasons view, fairly common patterns. You've probably seen them. And we'll run through them. I think I have all five examples, 3511, 3512, 1314, and 35YY, because you'll see, I don't have pattern number on it, but it's the season, it's printed seasons views. Next slide, please. There we go in green. Next, please. And here you are in brown. Again, the only back mark is the incised size number. You can see it. Next slide, please. Okay, this is coral red, RD 6559, right there printed in this case, but nothing else identifying it. And next slide, please. And there is blue. That's a nice combination of blue. It's a 4-piece set. Next slide, please. And there is another wow. Well, something interesting I want to point out. Look in the upper left of the picture. You'll see a pot, a milk jug, and a sugar bowl that is not a Wileman shape, not a square shape. In fact, it is a shape registered to Thomas Blair and Company, Longton, UK, under RD 6280 that I believe to be pottery, not china. Apparently, Thomas Blair was down the street from Wileman. And in a number of cases, Wileman put their patterns on some of Thomas Blair's products, but while they're making up an entire, in this case, it looked like an entire tea service because you've got clearly square cups, square plates, square saucers. You've got a handled square plate. And the sugar bowl, the open sugar bowl, is a square. But the three pieces on the upper left are part of Thomas Blair and Company. So I was noted it here. I've talked to a number of people about this, and it's apparently was fairly common. It appeared the last paragraph I have, it appears to be a working relationship between Blair and Wileman, as this registered Blair shape exists in other pottery that is backmarked by J.F. Wileman and Wileman and Company. And you'll see some following examples. Next slide, please. Okay, here's another example of Thomas Blair's product, but having Wileman backmark. Chinese plant pattern in an early J.F. Wileman backmark. Next slide, please. Here's another one. You can see the pot clearly has a Wileman symbol, and it's a registered pattern number. And I think on the bottom of the top, and the pot itself. So this, obviously there was some sort of cooperation between Blair and Wileman, but there's not really any documentation other than what I've talked to some people, but I've seen nothing in writing. But next slide, please. Okay, here's same old, another pot, a registered pattern number of Wileman on a Blair pot. That's not a Wileman shape. Next slide, please. Okay, printed seasons, pink. This is, I think, I call it pink. It's different from the coral red that's in the pattern book. So I've assigned a 35YY or XX, whatever you want, because I think it was a different color, but it wasn't shown in the pattern book. I call this pink, not coral red, but I could be wrong. There's a lot of discretion in this database because a lot of things aren't for certain because there's no factory pattern number shown. You see on the right, all you see is the mark for the incised shape registration number. So you have to make some calculated guesses, and that's what I've done. I hope I'm right, but I can't swear by it. Next slide, please. Orchids, very pretty. Three of them. Next slide, please. There we go. Orchids with a white background, 3529, very clear. Has a Wileman logo, and it has the incised 6559 RD number. Next slide, please. And here are orchids. This is interesting to me anyway. The pattern on the cups are different, same pattern RD number, I'm sorry, same factory pattern number, but the orchid is different color from the cups. And I'll let you read the description there rather than me trying to describe it. But it's the same factory RD number, factory pattern number, sorry. And it's a nuance, but apparently it's consistent with this pattern. I'll give everybody a little more time to read that. And the pattern book does not mention this, but I've in looking at them, it's consistent. So that's one variation that they threw a loop to me. But 3529. Okay, next slide, please. There are, or they're okay. Let's see. You can't really see it here. There's another wow picture. That's very pretty of a tea set. There's no pot there. Next slide, please. Okay, here's one with a salmon background. Again, clearly identified with 3530. Next slide, please. And there's an ivory background. Again, clearly identified with the factory pattern number, and it's certainly a square, 3531. Next slide, please. Okay, this is one we've seen a lot. To me, this is one of my favorite patterns, 3532, Japan Oriental Flowers. They didn't name it, but it's picked up that name. Again, it's a very pretty pattern. Next slide, please. And there is a slop bowl, a milk jug, and I'm very proud to say I acquired that square cabaret tray over 2 years ago, but it's still in England. I found no way to get it back because I don't trust the mail. And I love this pattern, and I saw that tray, and I was having a great opportunity to buy it, and I did. So anyway, next slide, please. Okay, there's a pot and there's a handled plate,
Okay.
3532.
Oh, I heard it
Very,
speaking.
very pretty. You notice there's not a base to that pot, but that's okay. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going thistle. New pattern. This was a registered pattern number 34404. There are 5 colors, and I've identified 3 of them. I have pictures of 3 of them. Next slide, please. This will be the blue. Very pretty, very clearly marked. 3544. Now, also the English, when they printed or painted these numbers on, you got to really look at them carefully because you could interpret that if you looked at it closely. It could be 3566, but it's not thistle. So I know it's not, it's 3544. But sometimes I had to interpret what I thought I was reading. And down below, there's a picture of a trio with a lighter shade of blue. I don't know if that is intentional or if somebody put it in a dishwasher or if it was just produced that way. But if you look in the far right of that picture, you see a darker blue plate. So it may have been a lighter blue version. I don't know. There was no mention of it. I have no idea how that happened. Next slide, please. There's thistle in rows. Again, you've got the Wileman backmark, the Wileman symbol, and you've got the RD number for the registered pattern, and as well as the incised shape RD. Next slide, please. And okay, this is kind of interesting because it was a picture I captured. If you know, the saucer doesn't match the cup. And I just thought it was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure whether that's pink or it's rose. I don't know. If it's 3545, it could be, I guess, rose. Anyway, I don't have a copy. I didn't have a picture or couldn't see the back mark, so I don't know. Next slide, please. Okay, thistle brown. That's pretty clear. There's no factory pattern number there, but it's thistle. You've got the registered for the shape and the registration for the pattern. Next slide, please. Okay, here's more of the brown thistle. And I just, as I run across pictures of sugar bowls and stuff like that, I try to include them just for interest. Okay, next slide, please. Rose. Again, it was named that in the pattern book. And in this case, there are a bunch of them there. I've got pictures of 3 of them. So remember the highlighted yellows, I do not have pictures of them. Okay, next slide, please. There we go, rose. Pretty pattern. Clearly identified, 3549. Next pattern, please. Or next slide, please. There we go. 3550. No RD number. I'm sorry, no factory number, but I think that's it. And next slide, please. And there's salmon background, very clearly marked, 3552. Next slide, please. Okay, now this is a fun one. It's named Wild Rose Wreath. Refers back to 3413, which is, I believe, a missing pattern book. On the left, you can see the pattern book 3556, and then it refers back to originally, I guess that's 3413, and I've circled square, so it was a square, I believe. That's how they identified them. And I had to go back to 3413 to get a picture of the pattern. And this is apparently a drawing of the pattern Wild Rose Wreath. I have never seen it. I assume it exists somewhere, but that's the challenge of trying to trace some of this stuff down. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, 3559. Pattern book description only. Apple blossom flower. They named it that. Okay, same thing as the one before. On the picture on the left, 3559, it refers back to 3523 and Queen Anne shape. So it was a square, or I believe it was a square. And on the right, I go back to 3523, and there's a picture of apple blossom rose. I have never seen one of these. And if anybody has one of these, I would love to have a picture of it and its backmark. I would include it in a heartbeat. Okay, next slide, please. Japan, flower and tree, pattern number registered 36808. This is hard to determine. One is dark blue and one is black. And boy, you've got to really look closely to see the difference. But anyway, next slide, please. Okay, I believe this to be the dark blue. I've seen different pictures, and I think it is, but it's a very dark blue. And next slide, please. 62 or 63, that's a black. This one is identified with the back mark, 3563, so that's black. I believe the one previously was dark blue, but I cannot swear to it because I have not seen the factory pattern number on it. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a variation. Now, the 3563, just the way they applied the pattern. And it's a little different. The one on the left is, I guess, the gold rim has been worn off and all, but it was just a variation. It's the same pattern, but it's a little bit different. I don't know if it was intentional or if that's just the way it was done. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we're getting into some unique ones. 3567, turquoise and gold. That was not the name assigned by the pattern. There were no names assigned by the pattern book. I think I got this probably from the book. 3567, clearly identified. Now, Chris Davenport was kind enough to note that this pattern on a square shape was reissued as number 7843 in 1904. And I'll give you some more illustrations on this, but it was the same pattern as 3567, but apparently, I don't know if it was a replacement, then they renumbered it or what. Next slide, please. Okay, here's, I've gone into the pattern book for, on the left is the drawing for the pattern book for 7843. And you can see the actual picture of the 3567 on the right. And it appears to be an identical copy. But this is the way they described pattern books. Now, again, I'm looking at the profile on the picture on the left. I'm looking at the written or the drawn profile of the plate. To me, that is a square plate or a square saucer. Because it says square also On the far left, it says 7843. Then the next column, it says square. So that is a square also. Next slide, please. Okay, here's this is more justification for what I've done on comparison of the slide of the pictures in the pattern books to the pictures in the later pattern book. And you compare, and I think they're the same. That's just for FYI. Next pattern, please. Next slide, please. Okay, this is another one, 3568, unnamed, clearly identified on the back stamp, 3568. It's not named, but it is a different pattern from anything else. And this came from, as you can see, from a private collection. Next pattern, please. Next slide, please. Okay, 3560, 69. On the left, it's really hard to see that 9, but it is. And on the drawing, it's also 3560. It has been drawn over because of the fading of the original notation. But that obviously is a square plate. You can look at the profile, and or I would swear it was. So I think it is a square, but I do not have a picture of one. Next slide, please. Okay, 3570. This is easy. Very pretty pattern. You look on the right, there is the back mark. It's back marked 3570. It's no color variations on itself. It's a unique pattern, not registered. Next pattern, please. 3571, same as before, different pattern, unnamed in the pattern book, clearly identified by backmark 3571, and obviously identified in the as you see on the upper right, verified in the BM. That means it is listed and said in the pattern book, and it's identified by pattern number. Next slide, please. Okay, another one of these guys, 3572, similar to what you've seen before, but a different pattern. On the right, you can see well, it's obviously square, but you can also see the incised shape registration. You can see the factory pattern numbers in all three pieces, so they belong together. Next slide, please. Okay, another one that never seen, 3573 in the pattern book. I don't think it says square here, but look at the profile of that plate of the drawing. That is a square plate. So I'm assuming it is 3573, and I assume it is a square. But I don't see, sometimes the writing on the pattern books were really tough. My photography was not that good either, but I don't think it says square or anything identifying it as a square, but it is a square to my belief. Next slide, please. Another variation, 3574. Again, the profile of the plate, I don't see it written anywhere identifying it as square, but the picture of the plate tells me it's square. And never seen a picture of it. I've never seen an example of this. Next slide, please. Okay, 3575. That one's easy. We got a factory assigned pattern number. Gilded red and turquoise, not identified by the pattern book, but it's acquired that name. Next, please. Bramble. Remember I told you blackberry before is different. Blackberry was originally started out here called blackberry, then they changed the name to bramble. It was a registered pattern number, and I thought I had all. Maybe I don't have all. We'll see. But I'll show you. It's a blackberry or bramble. It's probably in common parlance, most people call it bramble, but it earlier was called blackberry. So I'm just following what I'm trying to do here. Okay, next slide, please. Boom, there we go. 3576. Very pretty, registered pattern number. That's your blackberry / bramble. Call it what you like. Next slide, please. There's a nice set without the pot. 3576, back mark, clearly identified. Next, please. There's some more pieces of it. And next slide, please. Okay, there's a cake plate. Now, interesting thing about the cake plate, normally the handles are white with gold stripes in them. This one has the pattern applied against the whole thing. That's kind of unique. You'll see other, I've shown you, I'll point out other cake plates. Normally the handles themselves on the edges are white with gold striping. But this is unique enough just to throw it in there. They did something for somebody that somebody wanted it this way. Next slide, please. There's a square teapot in the same pattern, blue bramble. Next slide, please. Now there's one. I actually own this plate. It's not in the book. It is 3876, and I say /26. I don't know what /26 means. Somebody out there knows. Probably a number of people know what it means. I don't know if it's a replacement or what. But that gray pattern is not, or the gray color is not shown in the pattern book. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. Pink. Possible reissue. Remember, I said they reissued these things since this was a picture I captured of both. I did not have the back mark, so I'm not sure if it's a reissue or the original. Next slide, please. There we go. Here's one I can confirm. 3577. Brown. Okay, next, please. Okay. Here we go. Here's a combination of the handled plates. The difference, they're both in brown. The brown's different color, slightly there. It's a darker brown. I don't have the back marks on it, but you notice the one on the left, that's how most of the handled square plates look like with the handles. Look on the right. The pattern was applied across the handles. Don't know. Don't know if it was reissue. And better people than I don't know either. People I've asked, I don't understand, but it is a different thing. And this database is supposed to be pretty accurate, but boy, the more you get into it, the more you ask questions about it. I don't know some of this stuff. Next slide, please. Okay, now we go to black 3578. That's, well, it's still blackberry. That's rose or rosé, whatever you want to call it. Registered pattern number. Next, please. And there's a heliotrope. That is possible reissue. And I've got the pattern number XXX because the pattern does not show the pattern book does not show heliotrope, which I've learned is really purple. But anyway, there's one is. I think that's purple anyway. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're getting into bramble. Remember, it changed from blackberry to bramble. Possible reissue. I'm calling it blue because the original issue is 3677. I don't know if this is reissue or not. No way of telling without the back part, without the factory pattern number on it. Next, please. Same thing here, possible reissue. A darker brown, but it's bramble. Next, please. Okay, we're something unique here. Thistle. I got you guys going. I can hear the chuckles in the background. 3593 refers back to a pattern 1922. That's way, way, way back, early pattern of, I guess, Wileman. And this is clearly marked 3593. And again, this thistle is a different thistle from somebody calls it thistle. So I think it was, I'm not sure where I got the name, but it came out of one of my reference books. It's a different pattern from the earlier registered thistle, which I showed that earlier. It was a group called thistle. But anyway, this is a unique thistle. Next, please. Okay, now pattern 3608 thistle referred back to 3581. 3608, clearly backmarked. And again, completely different. Still another thistle. And anyway, as you get into this, trying to figure out what's going on with a square, there's very little written documentation. The best you can do is try the pattern books, and other than that, it becomes guesswork. But next, please. Okay, now here, let me see, unnamed this one. It refers back to 3480, and then 3480 refers it back to 3083, and it is clearly marked 3608. Okay, so I don't know if 3480 could have been a square or not. It would be nice if I could, but there was no picture, and there was nothing to determine if the earlier reference was a square, because it was in the pattern book, but it's silent on what it was. There's no picture either. It just is text. So next slide, please. Okay, clover. Okay. Registered pattern 57380. They got into reissues, so I made it complicated. I haven't seen pictures of the confirmed reissues. But next slide, please. Okay, very pretty pattern. Blue, clearly marked 3610. Next, please. Brown, not clearly marked, but obviously brown, and it is clover. Next, please. Here's pink. It is clearly marked 3612. Next, please. And there is 3613. That is the one I found at my first square. That's not the actual plate, but that was the pattern and the enameled pattern color on it. My first one I bought at Swinderby. I fell in love with that when I saw it. Donna thought I was mad, but I'd never seen it before. But it was Mark Wileman, and boy, I had to have it. That started the whole rigmarole I've got myself into. All right, next slide, please. Now, I do have a cabaret set in this, and that's my real piece of art, I think. Well, it's complete, and it's all matching. Next, please. There's the sugar bowl and milk jug. Next, please. And there's the plate, or the platter, or the tray. It is earthenware. And on the right, you see down below is the Wileman registration number, Wileman symbol with registration number. But you also have the J.F. Wileman eagle mark, which I believe designates this as earthenware. A very pretty platter, but it goes with the cabaret set. Okay, next, please. Scenery. Okay, that was named by the pattern book. Next slide, please. There we go. This is fairly, I'm sure you folks have seen these. Blue. Next, please. And there's a cake plate. Again, the traditional handles, like most of them are, white with the gold stripes. Next, please. Scenery. Not marked by 3615, but it is clearly brown and is clearly scenery. Next, please. There is another wow type thing. Somebody was selling that. I found it. I guess it was on eBay, and I drooled over it, but no, I don't need it. But no pot. But and it also has no slop bowl either. But it's got plates, saucers, and 12 cups. Unbelievable. Next, please. Okay, there's one in pink. Scenery in pink. Next, please. There's one enameled. Enameled is, they use that term for multicolor. Clearly marked 3617. And you can see on the right, it's the factory pattern, factory number, and also you've got the RD 6559. Next, please. Okay, this is 3619, a reissue of Wild Roses and Butterfly. Actually, I should have put it back up when I did it, but this is actually a reissue from the original issue. But anyway, it's clearly marked 3619. That's why I know it's a reissue. But it's in the pattern book as a reissue. Next, please. Okay, now here we got another fun one. 3620 as 3229 only Queen Anne QA shape. I have no idea what it looks like because 3229 is disappeared with the unknown pattern books. And I know it's a square, but I have no idea what it looks like. Maybe somebody out there has one. If you do, please let me know. Next, please. Okay, here we go. Still on clover, red, uh, not identified clearly by pattern number, but that's red clover. Please. Next, please. There we go. There's a tray I saw on eBay. I didn't buy it. But it's it's a registered pattern number too. Okay. Next, please. Trays are hard to find. They're very rare. Okay, here's another one of these. I believe it's a one-off, pattern 3622, referred back to 3313, clearly marked on the right 3622. So that's what it is. I don't know what it's called, but it is a square. Next, please. Okay, this is the same thing, but a sugar bowl and a plate, I guess. Yeah, a bread plate. Next, please. Okay, 3644, black Japan border, registered pattern number, clearly identified, very pretty pattern. Again, it's got everything. It's got the Wileman symbol, it's got the registered pattern number, it's got the factory pattern number, and it's got the incised shape number. That's a complete pack. Next, please. Shamrock. These are fairly late and not many of them floating around. I've only got pictures of two. One, the first one, it's not in the pattern book, but I got a picture of it. And the second one is in the pattern book. Okay, next slide, please. There's the gray one. Color is not in the pattern book, but that sure is gray and it's sure shamrock and it's certainly square. And okay, it's pretty much it. It's got the pattern numbers 3664 or not, in 26. I don't know what that really means, but I assume it was a later issue, but it's not in the pattern book. Next, please. Okay, there's one that is in the pattern book, 3665 blue. And all the rest of the colors I have never seen, but they're out there somewhere. Next, please. Okay. Here's another one, 3707 in the pattern book. Clover in the pattern book. Okay. Now, well, it says initially Alexandra shape, but down below it says if Queen Anne shape. So that means they made it in square. No illustration. I don't know if it's the same clover we had before or if it's a different clover. They don't help a lot, but it was done in both Alexandra and a square shape. Next slide, please. Okay, now here's one that 3711, unnamed. It is not in the pattern book. The pattern book you see in the upper right, 3711, Victoria shape, and there's a picture of it. Look at the lower left, or lower right, 3711. That's the plate I'm showing on the right. That's square. It's certainly not Victoria, but it's not in the pattern book. So heaven only knows how many of these things were done on either a special order or something. Somebody liked the pattern, they wanted it in square, I guess, but somebody got it. But anyway, next slide, please. Okay, now 3714, Floral Springs. Sprig, blue. And I say large sprigs, blue dots. And you'll see why, because the next one's small. Anyway, they're numbered. Now, this is interesting because they originally numbered 3717, Then later in the lower right notation in the pattern book, they changed the number to 3719. But this is the original number, 3717. Why they changed the number, I don't have a clue. But they did. And the picture in the lower right is, you can see it's circled 3719. And the notation should be 30 from 3717 to 3719. Beats me. Next slide. Now, here's another interesting one. 3723. Clearly 3723. It says Alex. But over on the right, if QA, Queen Anne, which was designation for square in those days, so it means it was done in square. Pink flowers. I'm assuming it was also, since they said if QA, I assume the square was done as well. Next slide, please. And 3770, I think to change the name, Black Japan, 3730, Black Japan, it says Alec on the left, but look down lower right, Queen Anne. Nope, so I guess they did it in Queen Anne as well, Queen Anne Square. Well, remember, Queen Anne was not the later Queen Anne. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this is what the pattern looks like on Alex. I'm sorry, but I don't have, I've never seen a picture of the pattern, but this is a very pretty pattern. But I've never seen a square, but this is 3770 Alex. But they also say they did it on square, but I don't have the square. So next, please. And this is okay, 3722. It carries on with the confusion here. I'll let you read that. And it's just, they call it cornflowers, and they changed the name 3 times. And it's you see it penciled in Alex, 3722, but it's the same pattern as they were talking about in the 3 above, or the 2 above. If you people think I'm going crazy, you can understand why after looking at, you ought to go through the pattern books and look at it. It'll drive you bonkers. But anyway, they're getting their revenge on me. So it was earlier called Pink Flowers, and 3730, same pattern, was called Black Japan. So I don't know. Anyway, that's just to add to my confusion. I don't know if there's no indication this was ever done in square, but it was just the name. I have no idea what the real name is. Next, please. Honeysuckle, pretty pattern. I only have one, enamel, 3759. Next, please, a registered pattern. That happens to be a mustache cup I have. The only one I've seen of that pattern. It's very pretty, though. Again, it's registered pattern number, Wileman symbol, RD shape number. Next, please. And the last in the first pattern book, this is the last mention of a square, and actually it should be under special because it was made for I don't know if it's for a bar or a group, Cononant Rangers, 3776, badge number such and such, and it's QA. You can see on the right QA, and the milk was Victoria. Why they combined Queen Anne? I guess I don't know, plate or a cup with Victoria milk. They did, but that's the last mention of square in the first pattern book. Okay, next slide, please. Now we get down to the fun. I call these specials. They're heraldic, commemorative, souvenir patterns. I applied a generic name to all of it. Basically, I've got, I think, 13 different patterns here. Pretty much, they're not in they neither appear in any of the existing pattern books that I'm aware of, nor have they ever been assigned that I'm aware of a factory pattern number. Also, there's no information available indicating how many of these special patterns were produced. It's kind of an unknown area. This was, somebody from North America would want a picture of their town hall, and they'd make 50 of them and ship them off, I think. Nobody kept records of it, as far as I know. All right, now one of the interesting things here, remember I told you square was produced between 1883 and 1888, according to the Wileman book. I'll show you a plate that commemorates an American monument that was made in 1898. And I'll show you what I think what they did. They used the whiteware in inventory. They were running, and didn't need much square then. And somebody wanted a square plate, so they gave it to them on a whiteware and I'll show you a picture of it later. But anyway, next picture, please. Okay, this is the Queen Jubilee. This is the registration. And interesting, the registration itself is marked out because, well, for those of you who know how the British government handles the coronation stuff, they scratched out the X's were put in by the government saying, no, you can't register that because that belongs to the crown. But the rest of it, which is some sort of leaf there, that was the registration. But anyway, Wileman was allowed to use it, but they couldn't claim the crown or the shield. Long story short. Next, please. I'll show you a picture of it. Okay, there it is. That was commemorating Queen Victoria's 50th. And I've got a couple things there. Next slide, please. There we go. Interesting enough, this little square pin dish, I believe is a square, but it's the only piece I've had that has no RD 6559 on it. It may not be a square because of that, but I think it is. But anyway, next, please. There's a pot, there's a whatever beaker, next square, please. There's another beaker. Next, please. There's a sugar bowl. Next, please. That has all these other things have the RD 6559 on it. Next, please. Okay, that's the back end of it. Enough of this. Next, please. There we go. 25th silver wedding anniversary, commemorating the 25th wedding anniversary of future King Edward VII and Queen Alexandra, 1888. Okay, that's a commemorative issue, I guess. Next square, please. Clearly a square. These you're going to see multiple colors of this. These came from New Zealand. That's where they live. Anyway, there we go. Look at the different. Oh, it's tremendous. Nothing indicated in the pattern book. Different colors. Very, very interesting. Very pretty, I thought. Okay, next, please. Okay, here's another one-off, I guess. I don't know who or what these characters are, but clearly square. This is interesting. The symbols on the cup are different than the illustrations on the plate. So I don't know why, but anyway, I don't know who or what they are. But anyway, there they are. Next, please. Here we go. An Australian coat of arms, Advanced Australia. There's a beautiful example of a handled plate. That was, I don't know the date on that, but it is obviously early. I don't know, is one of our Aussies could tell us when that came out, I imagine. But anyway, next square, please. Next, there we go. Here's one commemorating Bristol, UK crest. Clearly square, no other identification on it. Next, please. Okay, now here we're getting interesting. These were done for North America. And interesting enough, I've got about 5 of these plates different. I got them in a period of about 3 months on eBay from different sources. I've never seen them again and never saw them before, but 5 of them appeared within about a 3-month period. And I snatched up all 5 of them because I knew what they were. They're clearly squares, but this is commemorating Ethan Allen Monument. And the lower right is the name of the retailer who commissioned this being done. Apparently he or she sold them in their shop, around Burlington, Vermont. Anyway, next slide, please. Here's another one. Soldiers and Sailors Monument, New London, Connecticut. It was dedicated May 16, 1896. Remember, they stopped making squares in 1888. This is where I think they pulled the whiteware out of inventory, which was used for replacements, and decided time to get rid of the whiteware. And they did this, but it was made, obviously they didn't make it in 1888 for something dedicated in 1896. That's my logic anyway. So I don't know when they stopped making squares. Okay, next slide, please. Saunderson Grammar School, Burlington, Iowa. Now that is a wowzer. I don't know. The retailer had it. I can't read it where it was, but it's made in England, and it's got the incised RD 6559 on it, so it's clearly a handled square plate. Next, please. And Old Town Hall and St. Michael's Church, Marblehead, Mass, made for W.R. Harrington. It does it. It was just commemorating the church. It was 1780s, 27. I don't know. Anyway, it has an impressed RD 6559 there. Next, please. And Peaches Point, Old Town Hall, Marblehead, Mass. Same thing. Impressed 6559, and it was souvenirware. Next, please. Now, this is it was a pattern apparently done for somebody who wanted something special on white. It's got the gold rim around the rim of the cup. I guess the plate has gold around it. And that's circular design in the center, and that's all it is. There's no indication in the factory or the pattern books of it. Next, please. That's it, kids. If you think I'm nuts, now hopefully you understand why on some of this stuff. It's complicated, and I hope somebody can someday sort it out, but I've not been able to do any more than what I've told you. I will add, if I run across pictures I don't have, I'll put them in, but it's not likely. But Lyle has said that he will put this presentation on the US website. You can peruse it and criticize it. And if you got questions, send me an email. I'll try to answer them. Or if you can add additional information, I'd love to continue to improve the database. But I think it's pretty much a futile gesture at this point. The squares are getting harder and harder to